The torchlight flickered against the walls as the group stepped into the hidden passage. Each step sent echoes through the silence, as though the tomb itself was listening. The air grew colder the deeper they went, filled with the scent of dust that had not been disturbed for countless ages. Their boots crunched on stone, and the sound was sharp in the stillness. Aaron led the way, holding his torch high. The golden light revealed carvings along the walls. At first, the designs seemed like patterns, but soon they realized they were more than that. The walls told a story in images. They saw lines of human figures drawn small, standing before massive shapes that were not human. These shapes had long arms and tall crowns, and their eyes were carved as glowing stars. In the carvings, the humans bent low in worship. "This is no ordinary tomb," Loran said softly, his hand brushing the stone. His eyes traced every symbol with wonder. "It speaks of a time when people lived under something greater, beings they call gods." Mila frowned as she walked, her torch sweeping across the carvings. If these beings were gods, why would they be buried? Shouldn't gods live forever? Brune said nothing, but his sharp eyes caught details others missed. He pointed toward a section of the wall where the humans were no longer kneeling. Instead, they were standing tall, holding spears and blades. The giant figures were shown falling back, their crowns broken. They fought them. Brune said at last, his voice low but certain. The others fell silent. Aaron studied the images carefully. "Perhaps the tomb is not only a resting place," he said. "Perhaps it is also a warning." The passage widened as they moved further. The statues began to appear, standing like guards on either side of the hall. Each statue was carved from dark stone, shaped into warriors with weapons in their hands. Their eyes were set with dull gems, once bright but now shadowed with dust. Though unmoving, they gave the feeling of being watched. Mila slowed her steps. Her eyes locked on the statues. "They look ready to strike," she said. "If I did not know better, I would think they are waiting for us to make a mistake." Loran adjusted his notes nervously. "It is only stone," he said, though his voice trembled. "Yet I wonder if the makers wanted us to feel this way. Fear keeps trespassers from going further." Aaron placed his hand against one of the statues. The stone was smooth and cold, harder than any material he had touched before. He felt a strange pull within his chest, as if the statue itself remembered something he could not. He pulled his hand back quickly. They pressed on. The passage sloped downward, deeper into the earth. The air grew heavy, and the torchlight seemed weaker against the darkness. Soon the walls began to change. Golden veins ran through the stone. Faint at first, but glowing faintly as if alive. The explorers stopped, staring in amazement. "It shines," Mila whispered. "The stone itself carries gold." Loran bent low, touching the glowing veins. "Not just gold," he said. "It feels like metal and memory together, as though it has been shaped by more than human hands." Arn's eyes followed the golden lines. They spread across the walls like rivers, guiding them deeper. "This is what the stories meant," he said. "The tomb is alive with the past. Every stone holds a piece of what happened here." Brune walked ahead, his torchlight showing more veins. His sharp eyes caught small carvings hidden within the gold. Unlike the larger carvings on the walls, these were finer, more delicate. They showed not just battles, but also tools, stars, and strange ships flying across the sky. "Ships," Brune said. "They came from the heavens." The others gathered to see. There were shapes like vessels cutting through the night sky, descending upon small villages. People raised their arms in both fear and welcome. Below the ships stood the crowned figures, taller than any human, demanding obedience. They came not as gods, but as rulers, Aaron said firmly. And people believed, until one day they chose not to believe. The group pressed further, following the golden veins until the passage opened into a vast chamber. Their torches revealed a ceiling lost in darkness, supported by giant pillars, carved with the same alien figures. Between the pillars lay rows of sarcophagi, sealed with heavy stone lids. Mila drew closer to one and ran her hand over its surface. The lid was etched with symbols and more golden veins. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed unease. "Are these the tombs of the gods themselves, Loran stepped back quickly. If they were buried, then perhaps they are not dead. Perhaps they are only sleeping. The thought sent a chill through the group. Aaron raised his torch higher, forcing himself to stay calm. He studied the sarcophagi carefully. If they sleep, then we must tread carefully. But I believe this place was made by human hands after the war. It may not be a tomb for gods, but a prison to remind us of what we once endured. The golden veins pulsed faintly as if answering his words. The explorers felt the weight of the chamber pressing on them. For the first time, they realized the tomb was more than stone. It was a memory, and they were walking inside it. Silence wrapped around them once again, thicker than before. Only their breathing filled the air. As they stood among the statues and sarcophagi, they understood one truth. The first signs they had uncovered were not simply of worship or victory. They were signs that humans had faced something far greater than themselves and had chosen to fight. The torches burned low, and the chamber waited in stillness somewhere deeper inside. More secrets called to them. Aaron knew they could not stop. Now, they had to keep moving forward, even if the tomb did not want them to. The chamber of sarcophagi stretched wide, and the explorers felt small beneath its shadow. Their torchlight touched the edges of great stone lids, each marked with symbols of crowns, weapons, and stars. The golden veins glowed faintly along the walls and floors, pulsing as if carrying a heartbeat hidden deep within the tomb. Aaron stepped carefully, his boots echoing against the stone. He lifted his torch higher. Studying the room, the sarcophagi stood in rows, each one watched over by a statue. These statues were taller than the ones in the passage, their forms more detailed. They carried spears, swords, and shields, their stony eyes set with gems so dark they seemed endless. They are not just decorations, Mila said quietly. Her hand rested near her tool, ready to defend herself even though she knew stone could not move. They were made to guard. Loran leaned close to one of the statues, his fingers tracing the carvings at its base. The words here speak of silence. They say these guardians do not speak, yet they hear. They do not move, yet they wait. He swallowed hard. Who knows if it is only poetry? Brune's gaze swept the chamber, sharp and watchful. He counted every statue and every sarcophagus. There are more statues than tombs, he said at last. Some stand between the rows, others watch from the pillars. If the builders wanted us to feel fear, they succeeded. Aaron studied the nearest guardian. Its spear was pointed downward, its shield held across its chest. The stone was flawless, without cracks from age. It looked as though it had been carved yesterday, not centuries ago. He felt an unease grow inside him, but he did not let it show. Fear may be their weapon, he said firmly, but we cannot turn back now. The truth waits deeper inside. The group moved between the rows, their torches casting shifting shadows across the walls. The silence weighed heavily on them, pressing against their ears. It was not the natural silence of an empty place. It was as though something watched and judged them without words. As they passed, the golden veins on the floor glowed brighter. The light was not strong, but it was enough to guide their steps toward another archway at the far end of the chamber. Yet none of them could ignore the feeling that the statues' heads turned ever so slightly with their movements. Mila stopped suddenly and pointed her torch at one of the guardians. Its spear cast a long shadow that stretched across the floor. Look, she said. The shadow moved. The others froze. Aaron studied the statue carefully. The spear's shadow did seem different from before, bent at a new angle, but none of them had seen the statue move. It could be the torchlight, Loran said quickly, though his voice shook. Shadows change with the flame. Brune narrowed his eyes. Perhaps. Or perhaps the statues do more than wait. They pressed on, their hearts beating faster. Each step forward felt heavier than the last. The chamber seemed endless, filled with silent guardians that lined their path. At last, they reached the far archway. Beyond it stretched another passage, narrower and darker than the first. Before they could enter, Aaron paused and looked back at the chamber. The torches cast light across the statues once more. For a moment, he thought he saw one of the gems in their eyes flicker faintly, as though a spark lived within it. he turned back quickly, unwilling to let the fear root deeper. "We go forward," he said. "Stay close." The new passage was lower, forcing them to move in a line. The walls were closer together, the air colder. Here the golden veins were thicker, glowing with a steadier light. The carvings on the walls showed more detail, telling a story that seemed to flow in sequence. At first, the carvings showed humans kneeling before the crowned figures, but as they moved further, the scenes changed. Humans were shown learning, receiving tools, fire, and knowledge from the tall beings. The gifts seemed powerful, but the faces of the humans were carved with sorrow. They gave, but they demanded more in return. Loran said softly, reading the symbols. Knowledge was not free. Worship was the price. Aaron frowned as his torch revealed the next section. Now the carving showed humans turning against their masters. Spears and blades were raised, fire spread across villages, and the crowned figures stood in anger. The battle had begun. They fought back, Mila said with pride in her voice. Even when the enemy looked like gods, they fought. Bruin's sharp eyes caught the last carving near the end of the passage. It showed the tall beings fallen to the ground, their crowns broken. Above them, humans stood together, holding torches high. Behind the humans was a sealed door, marked with the same symbols as the one they had entered. "This place is not just a tomb," Bruin said. "It is a record of victory, a memory carved in stone." The group reached the end of the passage, where another set of doors stood. Unlike the first, these doors were smaller, but covered in gold. The veins across the walls led directly into them, as though feeding power into their frame. Aaron placed his hand on the door. The surface was warm, almost alive. The golden light pulsed beneath his fingers. "What lies beyond this," he said, "may be the heart of the tomb. The guardians behind us protect it. But the truth waits within." The explorers exchanged uneasy glances. They could still feel the silent eyes of the statues in the chamber they had left. Though unmoving, the guardians seemed closer than before, as if the tomb itself would not allow them to pass without cost. Yet none of them turned back. They had come seeking answers, and the doors before them promised secrets greater than fear. With steady hands, Aaron pressed against the golden surface, ready to open the way. The golden doors resisted at first. Their weight was immense, as though they had been sealed not just with stone, but with time itself. Aaron pressed with both hands, his shoulders straining, while Mila and Bruin joined him, slowly, with a sound that echoed like thunder through the passage. The doors began to move. A rush of cold air flowed from within, carrying the scent of age and dust. The explorers lifted their torches high as the gap widened. What they saw beyond left them silent with awe. The chamber stretched wide and tall, greater than any they had yet entered. The ceiling was lost in darkness, too high for the torchlight to reach. Every wall glittered as if the night sky had been trapped underground. Gold covered the surfaces, not in the form of coins or treasure, but as flowing veins, like rivers of light frozen in stone. The glow was steady, filling the room with a faint golden shine that made their torches almost unnecessary. In the center of the chamber stood a great platform. Upon it lay heaps of golden plates, blocks, and strange objects shaped into spirals, discs, and rods, unlike common treasure. These objects seemed crafted not for wealth but for meaning. Their surfaces were etched with symbols, each line delicate and precise, as though they carried messages waiting to be read. Mila's eyes widened. "I have never seen such gold. It is not wealth alone. It feels like thought made solid." Loran stepped forward quickly, his hands trembling as he reached for one of the discs. He brushed the dust away, revealing tiny carvings that spread across the surface in circles. "This is writing," he whispered, "but it is not a story written in words alone. It is a memory captured in metal." Aaron approached carefully, his torchlight glinting against the golden objects. He picked up a narrow rod, heavier than it looked. The moment his fingers closed around it, a sharp wave ran through his mind. His vision blurred, and for an instant he saw more than the chamber. He saw men and women long ago, standing together, with fear in their eyes, looking up at towering beings that glowed with strange power. The vision was gone in a breath. leaving his heart racing. He dropped the rod quickly, his breath uneven. "It speaks," he said, his voice shaking. "Not with words, but with memory. The gold remembers what happened here." The others stared at him, their faces pale in the golden glow. "Show us," Miles said. Aaron picked up the rod again, steadier this time. The vision returned, stronger than before. He saw battles under burning skies, humans raising weapons against the crown figures. He saw flames sweep across cities, ships falling from the heavens. Most of all, he felt the fear and courage of those who fought. A memory so vivid that it pierced through time. When he let go, the chamber felt colder, as though the visions had taken part of his strength. "This is no treasure," he said slowly. "It is history carved in gold. Every piece here holds a memory of the war between humans and the beings they once called gods." Loran picked up a disc and held it close. His eyes grew wide as he shivered from the rush of memory. "It is true," he whispered. "The humans were not only servants, they rose. They fought." Mila clenched her fist, her voice steady. "They were not afraid to stand. They broke free." Bruin did not reach for the gold. He only watched, his eyes sharp as always. "If these are memories," he said, "then they were placed here with purpose. Perhaps not for us, but for all who come after. The gold shines to remind us of what was done." The chamber felt alive with their words. The golden veins across the walls pulsed brighter, as though the tomb itself approved. Yet not all hearts were filled with the same thought. Lauren's gaze lingered on the golden objects with hunger. "Do you realize what this means?" he said. "If we carry this back to the world, we will be rich beyond measure. Nations will fight for a single piece of this. It is more than history. It is power." Aaron turned sharply, his face stern. "We did not come for riches. If the world fights over this gold, then the memory will be lost. It was not made to be melted or sold. It was made to teach." The silence between them grew heavy. The faint hum of the chamber filled the air, like a voice waiting for their choice. Mila stepped closer to Aaron. "He is right," she said. "This is greater than us. If we take it for greed, we may awaken what still sleeps here." Lauren's lips pressed into a thin line. He did not argue further, but his eyes did not leave the gold. Bruin moved slowly around the chamber, his torchlight sweeping over every corner. He pointed to the far wall, where a great carving stood above all others. It showed humans holding torches, standing over the broken forms of the crown beings. Behind them, a sun rose high, its rays spreading wide. "The message is clear," Bruin said. "The gold shines not for wealth but for memory." The tomb was built to remind us that humans chose freedom. Aaron stood silently for a moment, then nodded. "Then we must honor it. We will not be like those who knelt. We will take the story, not the treasure." The golden chamber glowed warmly. Round them, as if agreeing. Yet deep inside, the silent guardian still waited. And though the explorers had found the chamber of gold, they also knew the greatest test was still to come. The chamber of gold seemed endless in its silence, but the explorers knew it carried a voice. Every golden rod, disc, and plate was a piece of memory, a fragment of history left behind for those brave enough to enter. Aaron stood at the center, the glow of the walls casting light over his face. His heart still raced from the visions he had seen. "We must understand more," he said. "These are not just glimpses. They hold the full story." Mila nodded. "Then we should see it. We should know what they left behind." Loran was quick to agree, though his reasons were mixed. He wished to uncover knowledge, but also to hold power that others could not. Bruin remained silent, but his sharp eyes followed every movement. Measuring both the chamber and his companions, Aaron lifted one of the golden discs from the platform. Its surface shone faintly, its carvings arranged in spirals that pulled the eye inward. As his fingers closed around it, the world around him seemed to fall away. His breath caught as visions filled his mind. He stood on a plain of stone beneath a dark sky. Around him were humans dressed in simple clothes, their eyes raised in fear toward the horizon. From the heavens descended ships of metal, their sides glowing with strange light. From the ships stepped the crown beings, tall and proud, their arms long, their faces hidden beneath masks that glimmered like stars. The humans fell to their knees, their voices crying out in worship. The vision shifted. The crown beings gave fire, tools, and great stones that moved without effort. Villages grew into cities, built by human hands guided by alien power. But behind every gift came demand. The crowned figures stood upon thrones, expecting endless obedience. Humans bowed lower with each passing year. Aaron's chest tightened as the vision grew darker. The beings demanded more than worship. They demanded blood and service without end. The humans grew weary, their backs bent under the weight of false divinity. Fear filled their hearts, but deep inside, something stronger began to grow. Then the vision changed again. Aaron saw a spark of defiance. A group of humans refused to kneel. They stood tall before the crown beings, raising torches and blades. Their courage spread like fire. One by one, more humans stood, their voices rising together. Fear turned into strength. The crown beings answered with power. Beams of light fell from the ships, destroying villages in an instant. The skies burned as fire rained from above. But the humans did not break. They fought back with stones, spears. In unity, Aaron gasped and dropped the disc, his hands trembling. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he struggled to catch his breath. Mila stepped forward. Quickly, what did you see? Aaron looked at her with wide eyes. The beginning of the war. They came as rulers. They gave gifts but demanded chains. And when humans refused, the world burned. Loran snatched the disc, holding it close as if eager to see for himself. He pressed it to his palm, and soon his body stiffened as visions poured into him. His lips parted in shock as he whispered words only he could hear. After a long moment, he staggered back, his face pale. They destroyed so much, he said. Cities turned to ash. Yet still the humans fought. They were small, weak beside them. Yet they would not yield. It was not power that gave them victory, but courage. Mila touched another object, a golden rod carved with scenes of battle. The vision rushed into her mind. She saw warriors charging with nothing but courage against towering enemies. She felt their fear, but also their unity. Together they overwhelmed the crown beings, driving them back step by step. Ships fell from the sky, burning as they crashed into the earth. When she let go, her eyes burned with pride. They were not slaves, they were fighters. Even when the enemy looked like gods, they broke their crowns. Brune stepped closer at last. He did not touch the gold, but he studied the glowing veins that ran across the floor. The gold remembers because humans wanted it remembered. They wanted the world to know they were not weak. They left this behind so we would never forget. The chamber seemed to agree. The golden veins pulsed brighter, filling the room with a soft light. The explorers stood surrounded by the glow, the weight of history pressing upon them. But not all hearts carried the same thought. Lauren's eyes lingered on the discs and rods. If this gold holds memory, he said slowly, then whoever owns it owns the story. With it, we could shape how the world sees the past. Nations would come to us. Leaders would beg for these truths. Why should we leave it here to be buried again? Aaron's gaze hardened, because it was never meant to be owned. It was meant to be remembered. If we take it for power, then we become no better than those false gods. Mila stood beside him, her voice steady. The memory is the treasure. To steal it would break its meaning. The silence grew heavy. Lauren looked away but said nothing more. Still, the hunger in his eyes was clear. Aaron turned back toward the golden platform. He placed his hand gently on one of the discs, but this time he did not lift it. He only bowed his head. The forgotten battle must never be forgotten again, he whispered. The world will know, but not through stolen gold, through the story we carry. The chamber dimmed, as though satisfied by his words. The explorers felt a calm spread through the air. The visions had shown them not only the war, but the truth of what it meant to be human, to rise against those who would rule unjustly, to fight for freedom, even when the enemy seemed invincible. They had seen the forgotten battle, and now they carried its memory in their hearts, stronger than any treasure. The golden glow of the chamber still lingered in their eyes as the explorers stood in silence. The visions of the forgotten battle had filled their hearts with both pride and fear. For the first time, they understood that humanity had faced a power far greater than itself and had won not with strength, but with unity and courage. Yet the chamber did not free them easily. Its weight pressed heavily on their spirits. And the question remained, what should they do with what they had found? Aaron broke the silence first. His voice was calm, but carried a firmness that none could mistake. We know the truth now. This tomb was built not to hold riches, but to hold memory. We cannot disturb it further. We must carry the story, not the gold. Milo nodded at once. I agree. If we take the gold, we may awaken something that was meant to rest. Let it stay where it belongs. Brune gave a slow nod, his sharp eyes never leaving the shadows of the chamber. The guardians are not only stone. They are warning us. They judge us even now. But Lauren's face was tight with frustration. His hands clenched around his notes as if holding them too tightly. Would turn words into power. Do you not see? He said. This is greater than a story told by for travelers. The world must see the proof. With these golden discs and rods, we can show them. We can bring the truth to every kingdom and every hall of learning. Without them, we are only tellers of tales. No one will believe us. Aaron turned to him, his eyes steady. The truth is not meant to be bought and sold. If we carry these objects away, they will not remain truth. They will become weapons of greed. Lauren's voice grew sharper. And what if leaving them here means the truth dies in silence? What if the tomb closes forever and no one else finds it? Then the memory is lost, and all that courage will fade into dust. The chamber seemed to respond. A low hum filled the air, and the golden veins along the walls pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. The explorers froze as the sound echoed through the stone. The statues in the outer chamber remained still, yet the silence felt heavier than before. As if unseen eyes waited for their choice, Milo gripped her torch tighter. Listen to it. The tomb itself does not want to be disturbed, but Loran would not yield. His eyes burned with a mix of wonder and desire. If we leave everything here, we leave behind more than gold. We leave behind the chance to shape the future. Knowledge is power. Aaron, why should we walk away with empty hands when the answers are right before us? Aaron stepped closer, lowering his voice but not his strength. Because history is not ours to own. It belongs to all. If we take it, we dishonor those who fought. They did not rise against false gods so we could become thieves in their tomb. For a moment, the two men stood face to face, their torches casting long shadows across the golden walls. The chamber felt alive, listening to their every word. Brune moved between them, his calm voice cutting the tension. Look around you. The guardians wait for our choice. The tomb was built not only to preserve memory, but to test those who find it. Perhaps this is the final trial. If we leave with greed, we may not leave at all. His words carried weight, for just then, the golden veins flickered like fading fire. The statues at the edge of the chamber seemed closer than before, their gem eyes catching the torchlight. The explorers' hearts raced. Loran stepped back, his face pale. For all his hunger, he felt the weight of the tomb pressing down. His voice faltered. Maybe you are right. Perhaps it is safer to leave it here. Aaron placed a hand on his shoulder. Firm but steady. Not safer, Loran, stronger. The price of memory is respect. We honor the past by carrying it in our hearts, not in our bags. The chamber grew calmer. The golden veins brightened again, their glow soft and steady. The air felt lighter. As though the tomb itself approved. Milo let out a long breath she had not realized she was holding. Then it is decided. We leave the gold where it lies. We take only what cannot be stolen. The story. Loran did not answer at once. His gaze lingered on the golden discs. But at last he lowered his head and nodded. The group began to step back toward the golden doors. As they crossed the chamber, the statues remained still, their weapons unmoving. Yet the explorers could not shake the feeling that the guardians were watching every step. Only when they reached the threshold did Aaron look back. The chamber glowed faintly, a treasure of memory resting untouched in the dark. He whispered to himself, the world will. No, but not through greed. As they passed through the doors and into the passage beyond, the golden light faded slowly behind them. The silence of the tomb wrapped around them again. But it felt different now, less heavy, more peaceful. The explorers had paid the price of memory. They had chosen respect over riches, and the tomb had let them go. Yet deep within the stone halls, the guardians remained, waiting for the next to come. The gold still shone, holding the story of defiance, reminding the world that humans were never meant to kneel forever. The tomb closed behind them with a deep, echoing sound, as if the desert itself had swallowed their path. The explorers stood outside under the endless sky, the sand stretching far and wide. Golden under the sunlight, the air felt different, lighter than when they had entered, as though the weight of silence had lifted from their shoulders. Aaron looked back at the mound of sand that now hid the entrance. The tomb was sealed again. Silent as it had been for countless years, only those who knew its secret could ever find it again. He felt both relieved and humbled. Mila stepped beside him, brushing the dust from her clothes. "It is strange," she said softly. "We walked into that place hoping for treasure. Yet what we found was far greater. We leave empty-handed, but not empty-hearted." Brune, ever calm, nodded. "The story is heavier than any gold. It will weigh on our tongues when we speak it, but it will also lift the hearts of those who hear it." Loran, quieter than before, did not answer at once. His eyes still carried a flicker of longing for the golden discs and rods. Yet he knew now that to touch them again would be to risk awakening the wrath of the tomb. With a sigh, he said, "Perhaps words can carry more power than gold if spoken with truth." The group began their long walk back across the desert. The sun beat down, and the sand shifted under their boots, but none of them complained. Their thoughts were full of the visions they had seen, the towering figures who demanded worship, the humans who refused to kneel, and the fire of unity that had driven the false gods away. When at last they reached their camp, they found the camels restless and the supplies scattered by the wind. The desert had not been kind in their absence, but they were alive, and that was enough. That night, as they sat around a small fire, Aaron began to speak. His words were slow and steady. Carrying the weight of the tomb, he riddled the visions as clearly as he could, the cries of the first humans, the battles, the triumph. Mila added her own voice, shaping the story with care, making sure no detail was lost. Brune spoke of the guardians and the silent warning they carried, and even Loran contributed, admitting his moment of weakness and what he had learned from it. The fire crackled as their voices wove together, turning memory into story. It was the first telling of a tale that would spread far beyond their small circle. Days later, when they returned to their town, word of their journey spread quickly. People gathered to hear what they had found in the desert. At first, many doubted. They asked, "Where's the gold? Where are the treasures you promised?" But when Aaron stood before them and spoke with calm strength, the crowd grew quiet. He described the tomb, the statues, the glowing veins of gold that told of the past. Mila's voice followed, steady and true, painting pictures of the visions. Brune explained the meaning of the guardians, and Loran, though once tempted by greed, spoke with honesty about why they had left the gold untouched. The people listened. They saw in the eyes of the explorers that this was no tale invented for fame. It was truth, and it was heavier than gold. Soon the story spread to nearby villages, then to distant cities. Scribes wrote it down, and travelers carried it across mountains and seas. Wherever it was told, it brought the same feeling that humans had once faced gods and had refused to bow. Children sat wide-eyed by the fires as their elders riddled the tale. Warriors felt pride in their hearts, knowing their ancestors had stood against greater powers. Farmers and builders, too, felt the strength of unity, for the story belonged to all. Years passed, but the memory did not fade. It grew, carried like a torch from one generation to the next. The goal of the tomb remained hidden under the desert, silent and untouched, but the fire of the story burned bright in the hearts of people everywhere. Aaron and his companions grew older, but they never stopped telling what they had seen. They understood now that they had not been chosen to take treasure. They had been chosen to be messengers, to guard the memory of defiance and courage. One evening, long after their journey, Aaron sat by his window watching the stars. He thought of the beings who had once demanded worship and of the humans who had risen against them. The sky was vast, filled with unknown worlds, but he felt no fear. Humanity had already proven its strength. He whispered to himself, "The tomb may be silent, but the story speaks. As long as it is told, the torch will never die." In that moment, he understood the true meaning of the gold that shone in the tomb of silent gods. It was not meant to be held in hands. It was meant to live in hearts, to remind humanity of what it could achieve when it stood together. And so, the torch passed from the tomb to the explorers to the world.